Hello, everybody. Welcome to Big Game Bound. I'm Jack Doles. Week 1 of the National Football League is upon us, and so we begin our journey to Super Bowl 54. We'll be here each week previewing the big matchups, talking to interesting guests, and spotlighting the players that make this league so great. Let's start Week 1 with a topic that isn't going away. Andrew Luck abruptly retired during the preseason. He said injuries and rehab stripped him of the joy of the game. Former Patriot Rob Gronkowski retired after winning the Super Bowl. He said the same thing. The pain, the injuries, that just put him in a bad place. And to talk about this, we welcome to the studio Ty Halleck. He played for the Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ty, you were a running back, so you took the hits. You were a linebacker, so you delivered the hits. How big of an issue is this, and are you surprised to see people like this walk away from the game in their prime?
Well, I think you're surprised to see somebody like Andrew Luck, who was the #1 pick here, what seemed a few short years ago. But when you think about the totality of 7 years in the National Football League and 4 of them in this injury, rehab, kind of repeat mode, to me, I just think that it's not something that's super surprising, but it's surprising because you assumed that Andrew Luck was going to be that 14-year, 17-year type player. And in a day and age where you're getting used to seeing Tom Brady as much as you have, who again is a phenom, who's been in multiple Super Bowls, is 42 years old, all those things you think about, Andrew Luck was like the prototype guy with the strong arm that does that. But I can tell you from being in the locker room, being around these guys, the high level that quarterbacks have just mentally in preparation is draining enough, let alone adding to that hours and hours and hours of rehab and rehabilitation of the physical body to then have that matched along with the mental. It is just something that is just extremely overwhelming in a sport that is relentless and seeks you out if you're weak, tired, or injured, because everybody is operating at such a high level. So it is shocking because of who this is and what this really does to the National Football League and the Indianapolis Colts in particular, but not surprising with 4 years of this injury, rehab, repeat business, because it is just taxing and it does take the love out of it. It makes you wonder about yourself, your ability to play, your ability to contribute, and it is just draining.
For the player, is the mental part more difficult than the physical part? Rob Gronkowski talked about how he couldn't sleep for more than 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, and that really is what it gets down to. And when you think about that, I would submit to you that quarterback play would do that even times 10. There's so many things a quarterback has to do, especially a franchise quarterback like Andrew Luck, knowing where everybody's at, knowing everybody's assignment, knowing all these things. In addition to being the football player and a buddy of guys on the field, he's got to be like a coach on the field. And when you physically have something that's agonizing like that, and it definitely impedes your performance, it does get mentally dragging. Remember, these are some of the very highest level athletes in the world. And when you have something that doesn't allow you to compete at the level you're used to competing, certainly enough, it is a drag. And in his case, look, again, 4 of 7 years, and look, he's taking a lot of shots. Yeah. Don't kid yourself. There's been a lot of physical hits on Andrew Luck, and you can see him in NFL films telling the guys, hey, great hit, good job, and all that. That all took a toll on him, and finally to the point where he just said, hey, I just can't do this.
These are guys that were just in it. You've been away from it for a while. How does your body feel years later after the pounding that you took?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm pretty lucky, but I think like anything else, you kind of go through those trials and tribulations of, I've done some triathlons, I've gained some weight, I've been in a good routine, I haven't been. But at some point in some time, you got to ask yourself, you're on the earth for X amount of time, and you got to take care of yourself. And when you're injured, it's hard to do that. It's easier to stay on the couch. It's easier not to get those workouts in. Same thing's true for the NFL, but they're forced into the situation where they have to go. There's only so much rest they can get, so it becomes very, very difficult. But you got to stay healthy. You got to make it part of your life. The one benefit he would have is all the experience he has with health, nutrition, and things to get himself back healthy. And hopefully he'll do that and enjoy himself, and maybe perhaps get himself a chance to come back for some time.
All right, so Ty's a high school football coach in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and you're still around the game. You've got 2 sons that are playing at Michigan State. We are seeing numbers down across the country at the high school level. Did you encourage your kids to continue playing? Was there ever a part of you that thought, maybe you shouldn't play? I don't want you to go through what I went through.
No, I've encouraged my kids to play. I've also encouraged them to play multiple sports. I'm a big multiple sport guy. I mean, my son, Tanner, my oldest, played 4 sports. My second oldest, who's at Michigan State as well, played 3 sports. My daughter plays multiple sports, and is a little bit more centric on basketball. But the reality of it is doing multiple things is a good thing. From a football perspective, I just think it's a lot of reading and understanding what it is you're getting into and quite frankly, how long it lasts. Andrew Luck just reminds us this is a very physical game. This is a whole body issue. It's not just one particular. I mean, for a long time, it's been the concussion part that is a concern, but you get that concern in, girls' youth soccer, which has high ratings of that. Health in sports is something that goes hand in hand, and if you're somebody that is not healthy or being injured consistently in a sport, it becomes very taxing, and it does make you step back and say to yourself, is this something I want to do? And it would be the same conversation I would have with my kids if they were in this position where they continue to get injured. In their case, again, both of them have been very lucky, and as is my daughter, to not have those injuries. But at some time and some place, look, when I got to be 30 years old in the National Football League for 7-8 years, I started to get injuries, and they started to add up. And lo and behold, I had to go too. So it happens to us all. Father time eventually gets there.
So we hear enough about the conversation about the dangers of football, but what is the biggest thing you got out of this game? Why did you want your kids to play?
Well, I think football, more than any other sport, there's a lot of the delayed gratification. In a day and age where we are thumb-centric and texting and Snapchatting and Twittering, football is something you have to work at all summer, all year round to do well, and you get, in high school, only 9 experiences and hopefully get into the playoffs. In college, you're getting your, 11, 12 games and hopefully into a playoff scenario or at least a bowl game. So there's limited access to actual competition and the winning part of it. There's a lot of hard work. Most of us have seasons of life that go well for a while and then not so well and then well. Football is very similar to that. And there's a lot of days where it's like, man, do I really want to do this? Do I have the fortitude to finish this? Football does that for you. It is a very difficult, but it's very rewarding. And I also think that there's a lot of things you get out of it that relate back to what it is you want to become and do, and hard work is certainly part of that.
All right, before we let you go, we got to tap into your knowledge a little bit. Who are the 2 teams you expect to see in Miami in the Super Bowl this year?
Boy, I'll go a little bit. Well, I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think they're the hot team. The big question mark there will be the D. I wouldn't be shocked at the New England Patriots. But I'm a biggest fan, I think, of all of them to get to the Super Bowl, if you really strip it down, as the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees, and I think Alvin Kamara is really going to have a big year. Now that Ingram's not there, he went to Baltimore. It's really more one back. He can run it inside. He can run it outside. He can catch the ball very well. I think if Kamara stays healthy, the New Orleans Saints will be a very good football team.
How much of that motivation for them is what's happened to them the last couple of years?
I think so, and so much so it's changed the National Football League and what they're really willing to look at and review. But they certainly have a big chip on their shoulder, and I think Drew Brees is another one of those special people we have in the National Football League, and it's exciting to watch them. And it'll be exciting to see Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, these guys that are coming up too, the younger guys. It should be an exciting football season this year.
Thank you, Ty. Let's talk matchups now. 2 great ones in Week 1. The Bears and Packers kick off the new season tonight on NBC, one of the great rivalries in the NFL. And to help gear you up for the game, we are calling on some Next Star Nation insiders. Scott Leber covers the Bears for WTVO TV in Rockford, Illinois. He is the host of the Bear Blitz and joins us right now. Scott, are the Bears who we thought they were? How good is this team? Can they make the next step after winning the NFC North last year?
Well, I've seen some national pundits kind of, I think, underestimating the Bears, having them picked down in the order. I think in one power ranking, they were ranked 11th, and I'm thinking, did anybody watch this team play last year? The Bears, in our opinion, and in the opinion of all Chicagoans, they're legit Super Bowl contenders this year. In fact, they thought they were last year, the way they were playing at the end of the season, and if they had a kicker who could make a field goal last year, who knows, they might have gone to the Super Bowl. Everybody here who follows the Bears closely expects this team to be even better this year because their core group of players is so young. They only have one guy on defense who's age 30 or over. They have so many young guys who they expect to improve. Roquan Smith, Leonard Floyd, Bilal Nichols. These are all young guys. Eddie Jackson's still young. So they have not come close to reaching their ceiling in the opinion of many. But what does concern people are 2 things. One, the Bears have a brutal schedule this year. They've got teams like the Chiefs, the Saints, the Eagles, the Rams on their schedule. It's one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. And two, last year the Bears were very fortunate that they avoided major injuries pretty much all season long. That's not likely to repeat in the NFL. As we know, players get banged up. So those are the two concerns, the tough schedule and staying healthy.
And, of course, the double doink. You hope you have a kicker this year. You know, once they signed Khalil Mack, the Bears defense became a force. But Vic Fangio left to become the new head coach of the Denver Broncos. Chuck Pagano takes over as defensive coordinator. How has the defense responded to this change so far?
It's been seamless. It's been perfect from all accounts, from what we've observed. The Bears, you know, they hated to lose Vic Fangio. He was perfect, and what he did with that defense the last couple of years was phenomenal. But they were so fortunate to have Chuck Pagano sitting there on the sideline, doing nothing, and fall right into their laps. He is the perfect replacement for Vic Fangio. Pagano's smart enough to know this defense isn't broken. Don't tinker with it too much. However, what we are going to see out of this defense this year that we didn't see under Fangio is a lot more blitzing. Roquan Smith, the middle linebackers, are going to be coming a lot this year with the quarterback straight up the middle. Khalil Mack, who dropped back in coverage a lot last year, surprisingly, I think he's going to be sent toward the quarterback more often, which totally makes sense. And Leonard Floyd on the other edge will be sent hard after the quarterback. So we will see a lot more blitzing, a lot more aggressive strategy by the Bears.
Which I'm sure has a few quarterbacks quaking in their boots. Speaking of quarterbacks, year number 3 for Mitch Trubisky. He made great strides under Matt Nagy last year. What's the vibe in Bears camp? Can he be the elite quarterback in this league who can lead his team to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's still an unknown. Until we see him do it on the field, he is still a bit of a question mark. The coaches and GM Ryan Pace, they all say that they've been raving about Trubisky's improvement in the offseason and minicamps and all that, but hey, how do you really know until he gets out there against a real defense, right, that's trying to stop him? But they love the way he has grasped the offense. You know, this is year 2 now with Matt Nagy's offensive system. Naturally, any quarterback's going to have a better grasp of the offense in year 2 than he did in year 1. So from that standpoint alone, Trubisky should be improved this year. The big question mark for him has been and could continue to be, how accurate can he be on the deep balls? He's accurate when he throws short, when he dumps it off to his running backs, his tight ends, and the short routes. But he's been inconsistent with the deep balls. He has to improve there. But I think the way the Bears are looking at it right now, Mitch Trubisky may never be an elite quarterback in the Aaron Rodgers mold or Tom Brady mold, but he's more than good enough with the right pieces around him to be a Super Bowl quarterback, and right now he has the right pieces around him with that stellar defense. The offensive line is back intact. All 5 starters are back. They feel like they've upgraded at running back with their rookie draft pick, David Montgomery. He is better than Jordan Howard. They've got a completely healthy Eddie Robinson at wide receiver right now. All the pieces are there around Mitch Trubisky this year. The only question mark on offense is the tight end position where Trey Burton just can't get healthy, and Adam Shaheen is still a big question mark. He's had injury issues. But they believe, the Bears do, that Trubisky will be better this year and that he is more than good enough with the right parts around him to be a Super Bowl quarterback.
All right, last question for you. What is it about this rivalry? I mean, this is not just another game on the schedule for the Bears and the Packers, is it?
Well, no, it's certainly not for the fans anyway. It's the fans who go bonkers over this rivalry, right? I mean, we hear it all the time here in the Rockford area, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin area. It's a mix here in this area of Packers and Bears fans, and they just, you know, they love to trash talk and get on each other, and they're miserable on Monday at their team lost because they go to work and they have to take some of that trash talk from their co-workers. So for the fans, it is just a huge deal. For the players, it's a big deal because they know it's a divisional game, and you got to win within your division if you want to win the division. But most of the guys on the Bears, you know, a lot of them are from the southeastern part of the country. They grew up not even paying attention to Bears Packers, and some are from the West Coast and the East Coast. So for them, I don't think the players, the rivalry is nearly as big as it is for the fans. But they do know it's a divisional game. They do know it's a Thursday night primetime game. All eyes will be on them. You better believe the Bears want to come out and put on a good showing Thursday night.
All right, Scott Leber, host of Bear Blitz. We look forward to talking to you again on Big Game Bound as this season continues. Thanks. Can't talk Bears-Packers without a little Packer perspective. Burt Griffin is our Packer insider, sports director, WFRV in Green Bay. Burt, the changes were even greater in Green Bay than they were in Chicago. Mike McCarthy is gone. Matt LaFleur takes over. Did the Packers take a risk pairing a rookie head coach with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, where there's risk, there is reward. Now, Matt LaFleur played the preseason about as vanilla as you can in terms of scheme. And if the apple doesn't fall far from the tree and we begin to see that Sean McVay influence, we're definitely going to see some multiple pre-snap formation changes, jet sweeps, motions, all the things we didn't see in the preseason. Now, LaFleur, look, he's definitely brought a breath of fresh air to what had become a pretty stale offense. And LaFleur has also reinvigorated other parts of the franchise, from the lighting being brightened up in the hallways to decorating the walls with huge pictures of other moments in team history.
Back-to-back losing seasons in Green Bay for the first time since 1991. We're not used to that. But I just read that power rating that had the Packers ahead of the Bears. Why the optimism?
Well, I think it's because the organization has sort of cleaned house at all levels, with the exception of Aaron Rodgers. They brought in 4 starters via free agency, big money guys, and I think all of them are going to have an instant impact. Billy Turner anchors the O-line at right guard. He can also play tackle. You got Zadarius and Preston Smith up front defensively, both studs. And, of course, former Bear Adrian Amos in the secondary, who will definitely play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder Thursday night.
Well, the Packers used 2 first-round picks to shore up the defense. Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage. How much of an impact do you expect the rookies to make? Who stood out in camp?
Well, I guess Savage more than Gary at this point, but I don't think we will really know until we see them in game action down the road, and both of them look pretty good so far. Savage looks like less of the rookie so far, and in Mike Pettine's scheme, though, Gary, he's going to get his chances to go after the quarterback because he uses so many different personnel groupings.
Now let's get your perspective on the rivalry. Bears-Packers, one of the greatest in the NFL. From a Green Bay perspective, why is this one so important to Cheesehead Nation?
Well, frankly, the Bears had beaten up on the Packers for so long in the modern era until Brett Favre came along and subsequently Aaron Rodgers. Over the past 25 years, it's been Packers domination. And when you consider that Rodgers is 17-5 against Chicago in his career, that's pretty impressive. Also, the younger generation just doesn't really know how much these two franchises are intertwined. Chicago was originally one of the few places that Packers fans could travel to because all the other teams are on the East Coast. And then George Halleck literally helped save Green Bay's football team here in Titletown in 1956 when he led that fundraising bond drive that would lead to the building of the new city stadium, which was eventually named Lambeau Field.
The big game in the AFC in Week 1 will be played Sunday night. Steelers and Patriots in Foxborough. For more on the defending Super Bowl champions, we bring on Yanni Karakas. He's the sports director at WPRI in Providence, host of New England Nation. He covers the Patriots. Yanni, it's been a while since anyone's repeated. What's the biggest obstacle standing in the way of Brady and Belichick?
Yeah, it's been since 2003 and 2004, and Brady and Belichick did it against Carolina and then the Eagles. You know, the Patriots could have done it 2 years ago, but they lost to the Eagles. It's just a little bit of luck, a little bit of attrition, and staying healthy. So I think the Patriots will be there in the end, at least to the AFC Championship game where they've been every year since 2011. Whether or not they win the Super Bowl remains to be seen. But this, as long as they have Brady and Belichick, they'll at least be back to the Final Four because that's been the case over the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, it's just an obscene run they're on. This is the last year of Brady's contract. He's 42. How much longer can the GOAT go?
Well, he's been saying all along 45, which a couple years ago seemed absolutely crazy, right? Because really we haven't seen any quarterback perform well into their 40s, save that 1 year from Brett Favre with the Vikings. But now here he is in his year 42 season, so that would mean 3 more years after this. We haven't seen him fall off a cliff like many have projected. I think his play has declined a little bit in the last year or two, but I think if you're getting 90% of what you got last year and then 90% next year of what you got this year, you still have a top 10 quarterback in this league. And Brady has an encyclopedic memory of their playbook and such a great rapport with offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels and, of course, Bill Belichick, that, as he told Peter King once, he has all the answers to the test, so why give it up now? There'll be some physical limitations as he gets older, but he has this crazy diet and workout regimen that he has now sold as a product called TB12. So he's actually living this lifestyle that he is an ambassador for and sells called TB12. So it benefits him in his lifestyle and his work and his career to keep playing. So I don't think this will be his last year despite the contract situation.
Okay, so the Patriots start this season without a defensive coordinator. Why? Is this a case of it's Bill Belichick's car, he wants to drive it?
Well, it's funny. This is the second year in a row. Matt Patricia left for the Lions last year. Brian Flores left for the Dolphins this year. And let's remember, Bill Belichick made his bones in the National Football League as a defensive coordinator under Bill Parcells. So he grew up as a defensive guy in this league, but he's been asked point blank directly, who's the defensive coordinator? He was asked on Wednesday of this week, who's calling the plays, and he won't give a straight answer. All indications are that former Patriot linebacker Gerard Mayo will be calling the plays into the green headset on the field, but I think it'll be Bill Belichick's defensive game plan that is instituted during the week, and he has the benefit of just putting the offense to Brady and Josh McDaniels, so the Patriots have that luxury. So yeah, Belichick will be much more involved with the defense, I think, this year.
And it's become a tradition for the Super Bowl champ to open the new season. Any disappointment that they have to wait until Sunday?
Yeah, I think Patriot fans, I don't think the team would say it directly, but Patriot fans are a little bit slighted. You win the Super Bowl, you want banner night on the Thursday. They've had the opportunity to host this night 5 previous occasions in this era. And I think the NFL can get away with saying Packers-Bears, it's the longest rivalry in this 100th season or what have you. But it's no secret the Patriots in the league have had their issues in recent memory with Deflategate, with Spygate dating back to Bill Belichick after the 2007 season. So, yeah, I think Patriot fans are slighted, and I think if you gave truth serum to the Patriots, they would feel slighted as well. But they're going to treat Sunday night like they're the only game in town, which at that point on Sunday Night Football they will be.
All right, Yanni, one last question for you. One of the big storylines in Week 1, Ezekiel Elliott got paid $90 million over 6 years, biggest contract for a running back. Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, he's never been paid like that. Why doesn't he break the bank?
It's a good question, and it's something that's really, really benefited the Patriots. He has said, sort of tongue-in-cheek this year, he's fortunate enough to have a wife who makes a lot of money. Gisele Bündchen is a supermodel who annually makes more than Tom Brady. I think at the end of the day, he decided that he was making enough money and wanted to keep winning, and realized that if he could give more money back to the team, they could allocate it to resources that would help the team and get him more rings. But rare, if at all, do you see that anymore in professional sports. And you can't blame these guys. You see the longevity of football players. It's not very long other than the quarterback position, so you want to get yours. So the Patriots are lucky. And if Tom Brady wants to kick and scream this offseason and someone wants to pay him $40 million a year and he's willing to walk out the door, he could, because this is his final year under the contract and he can't be franchised. So there is a real possibility he could leave New England. I don't think that's going to happen. But if he says, hey, the Patriots don't want to pay me, I want to get a payday, he certainly could get that on the open market.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine Robert Kraft or Bill Belichick living without Tom Brady. Yanni Karakas, we're going to see plenty of you during the season because, well, we know the Patriots will be in the hunt. Thank you for all your great information. One of the other big storylines heading into Week 1 is from Dallas, where Ezekiel Elliott finally got his contract. Jerry Jones' wallet is $90 million lighter. Mickey Spagnola reports for Silver Star Nation. He has the latest from Frisco, Texas.
Well, the deal is finally done. The Cowboys signed running back Ezekiel Elliott to a 6-year, $90 million deal. And when you add the 2 years he still had on his existing contract, it ends up being an 8-year, $103 million deal. There's $50 million guaranteed, and he got only a $7.5 million signing bonus. Ezekiel Elliott signed the contract Wednesday morning and got right into practice with the Cowboys, their first padded practice of the week, getting ready for the New York Football Giants. It's looked like he was able to get through everything, even though the temperatures were pretty high here. Now, he was in Cabo supposedly training, and the temperatures during practice got into the 90-degree area with a feel like of 103. So the Cowboys now have to judge just how much he can do Sunday against the New York Giants. Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett said they'd kind of play it by ear here, see how he looks in practice, see how much he can handle. The Cowboys also want Tony Pollard in the game plan. And that's it from here at the Star in Frisco, Texas.
Next up, a segment I am really excited to share with you. Each week we'll bring you a big guest, and I can't think of a better way to kick things off than to bring in Hard Knocks creator, executive producer, Marty Callner. Marty, I love this series. Where did the idea come from? And was it a tough sell to HBO and the NFL?
Well, the idea came out of thin air. You know, I was primarily at the time directing music videos and big specials for HBO. And one day I was sitting in my house and at dinner, and I just kind of closed my eyes for about 15 minutes. My family looked at me like I was loco. And I opened them up and I said, I think I have a great idea. And then obviously breaking the shield is next to impossible. So it was a very hard sell. I ended up telling them, both of them, I had the other ones without really having either of them. And, you know, the rest is history, so they say.
So, Marty, how much of a say do you have in picking the team each year?
Well, not much. You know, it's really up to the NFL and the teams. Me or HBO, we can offer our suggestions, which we honestly do, but circumstances dictate who it's going to be. And it's always a mystery. And this year was particularly tough. But, you know, the NFL rule says, you know, we can mandate teams to do it based on certain situations and, you know, certain criteria. And, you know, so we ended up with, I think, turns out to be our best year.
Yes, it's got to be a little manna from heaven getting John Gruden to be kind of the star of this show, and so many great storylines.
That's an understatement. I didn't think it could get last year. Could get better than the Browns, which I thought was amazing, and they became for a year America's team, and now it's the Raiders. And why am I wearing the Raiders shirt? To be honest with you, I forgot that I was doing this today, but I wore the Raiders shirt because whoever's on Hard Knocks is who I'm a fan of that year. But I've always been a Raiders fan, so it kind of makes it, you know. Yes, John Gruden is absolutely a superstar. And he might have been reluctant in the beginning, but he loves it now. And it's obvious how much he loves it. And I'm sure the fact that everybody's coming up to him and telling him how great he is making him even more apt to be even greater. And, yeah, he's good TV.
Does he wear that Chucky scowl on his face day and night?
Well, that's what I've seen, certainly when there's a light on. But there's a lot of great moments this year, even though it's all about the cuts. And that's what the show was designed about. It was designed because, obviously, all these players were stars in junior high school and Pee Wee football and high school and college. And now they're on a stage where everybody is as big and as fast as they are. And the difference between making it and not making it is paper thin. The consequences are gigantic. So it creates a drama of what's going to happen when 75 guys are fighting for 53 roster spots. You know, what's the veteran going to do to keep his job? What's the rookie going to do to get his job?
Is there a player or two you've seen cut over the years that you kind of maybe wonder why? Why that guy? Somebody that really surprised you?
I said that about Danny Whitehead.
Yeah.
And he went on to have a big career. So there's a lot of people who have been exposed on Hard Knocks who have been cut. Other teams have seen them and they like what they see. You know, it's a terrific exposure for a guy's talents. And, you know, and like I said, you know, it's a hard choice for some of these guys to get cut. There's only so many practice squad spots. and some of them get picked up, but he's the one I can remember having a stellar career after being cut. This year, I'm very interested to see what happens with Keelan Doss, who looks all pro. And he's a walk-on, free agent. You know, so he's a great story. You know, is he going to make it or not make it? You know, and it's beautiful when they make it. You can share that excitement, and obviously the heartbreak when they don't make it is gripping, and it makes amazing drama, and it's a real reality show. I didn't think of it at the time because there was no reality shows, but that's basically what it is. Real stakes, 6 weeks, the ultimate survivor.
The coaches by nature, Marty, are some of the most paranoid people on earth. How are you able to gain their trust and get them to allow these cameras to be on in such pivotal situations?
Well, I'm not sure we ever fully have their trust, but we try and be as unobtrusive as we can and not to try and embarrass anybody, although the Cleveland coach embarrassed himself. And, you know, we're just flies on a wall. So if it makes him be in a little better behavior, it does. But, you know, I think our non-intrusive presence is what allows us to get the kind of access we need. And the fact that the show is so unbelievably popular and so good for each franchise. What this is doing for the Raiders setting up in Las Vegas next year, you cannot get tickets. And they're really expensive. And you know what? Hard Knocks pushed it over the top. It was going to be big anyway, but, you know, now we become part of the nomenclature. I watched the Raider game the other night. They must have mentioned Hard Knocks 10 times. So it's, did I ever dream it would become this? No, I didn't. But am I happy? Obviously, I'm happy.
I know, Marty, you're a famous dreamer. You grew up in Cincinnati, raised by a single mother. And how do you get from there to where you are now? What was it that your mother instilled in you, the most important thing a director or anyone can do to succeed?
It's a very interesting question. I have an answer for you. Every night, you know, my mother used to fill me with cliches, and I'd say, what are you talking about? And they ended up being the cornerstones of my life, and I try to pass them down to my children. She used to say to me every night before I went to sleep, I didn't know what she meant at the time, but she would say, a man who doesn't build castles in the air doesn't build them anywhere. And it taught me to dream and to dream big, and to make me feel that if I wanted to make something happen, if I worked hard enough, I can make it happen. And you know what? It turned out to be prophetic. I owe everything to her. And, you know, at the time it was annoying, but as I look back on it, I wish she was here so I could just thank her every minute of every day.
Well, you've done incredible work, Marty. We thank you for joining us tonight. Again, he is Marty Callner, creator, executive producer, director of Hard Knocks. Thank you for your time, and thanks for sharing your great wisdom.
My pleasure.
Well, the final drive on Big Game Bound ventures into the world of fantasy football. All right, come on, let's see a show of hands. Who hasn't built a team and talked an endless amount of trash with their coworkers and friends? That's what I thought. So to help you out with your team, we are calling on a fantasy football expert. Bob Harris is the senior editor of FootballDiehards.com. He is the host of SiriusXM's Fantasy Radio, and he's a member of the Fantasy Football Writers Hall of Fame. Bob, thanks for joining us. I can't wait to tap into your knowledge.
Thanks for having me, Jack. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, so last year, Patrick Mahomes took the lead by storm, put up some silly numbers. Is it too much to ask to expect a similar year from him?
Yes, but so if you go back over the last 10 years, there has been regression in touchdown passing totals for every quarterback, every single year except for one. And so, you know, you should expect some dialing back. It would be normal. I would say, though, if you've watched Patrick Mahomes, as we all have, probably anything is possible. And let's say there's even a 20% regression. That's still going to be 40 touchdowns. So he's, you know, expecting him to have a super good season is pretty reasonable. Expecting him to hit that 50 is not as reasonable. I wouldn't, you know, rule it out totally just based on what I've seen from him. But the expectation should be there will be less.
I'm sure you've spent a considerable amount of time looking at players. Which player do you think could be this year's Patrick Mahomes?
Nobody, but if you want, I think if you're looking for a quarterback who looks like he's unique, a unique talent. I mean, everyone is focused on Kyler Murray because we want to catch that lightning in a bottle. I think I like Lamar Jackson a little better. We've got a sample of what he's going to do. We have a feel for how the Ravens have redesigned their offense and retooled it to better suit his skills. I'm not expecting the same kind of rushing numbers that we saw last year, at least in terms of carries, but expecting more production over the course of the season and expecting him to, throw the ball a little more. Both of those things seem perfectly reasonable. And I think one of the things you can do in these cases is there are quarterbacks late in your draft that are going to be very solid, right? Phillip Rivers is perennially a quarterback 2 or drafted as a fantasy quarterback 2, who every week will put up quarterback 1 numbers. You'll find other guys like that. So reach a little bit, for an upside guy like Lamar Jackson and then get a steady Eddie to work behind him, a guy like Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, someone like that.
I'm sure most people have drafted teams by now, but for those who haven't, why are running backs so popular in fantasy leagues and so unpopular with real owners? Why take a running back in the first round and not a Patrick Mahomes, who put up such huge, prolific numbers last year?
Right, it's positional scarcity, right? There are only X number of starting running backs in the NFL. If you're in a 12-team league, it gets thin because you're normally starting at least 2 running backs, right? So you double up that 12 of the starting quarterbacks you have. And the guys with a solid workload, and that's what we're drafting this time of year, Jack, is a clear path to workload, anticipated workloads, right? That's why the true feature backs go so early in drafts and so far ahead of everyone else, like Patrick Mahomes. And I think, it's kind of the opposite, though, for the positional scarcity in fantasy is not the same in the NFL. I think what we've learned, anyone who's been playing for any amount of time, and I can go back to Reuben Drones, Nick Goings, Noshawn Marino, and we can take it up to just, last year, C.J. Anderson, a running back nobody drafts is going to win somebody a fantasy title. It's almost assured. There were periods in Houston where it was a perennial thing. Baltimore the last few years, Justin Forsett, Alex Collins. These, guys come out of nowhere, but you have to be prepared to find them and identify them. Try to identify them a little bit early, look for trends, but you still need these key running backs. They're what fuels your fantasy fire. So get yourself a guy with a workload and get him early.
All right, so who's that guy that could come out of nowhere and win a championship that nobody drafted?
I think you were looking at guys that are maybe handcuffs. Look, if you like Ezekiel Elliott, maybe you grab Tony Pollard really late, a very late round pick. Maybe if you're a Minnesota Vikings, you think Dalvin Cook's well positioned. Look, Gary Kubiak, the guy who coached the Houston Texans and had great success with guys named Steve Slayton, Dominic Davis, a kid named Arian Foster that nobody heard of until he was the best back in football. If you're looking at a Dalvin Cook who has a little bit of injury history, you take a chance on Alex Madison, the guy behind him. And I think those are the guys that we're looking for now. And then you kind of watch the developments as the season rolls along. I think one guy I'm drafting heavily that I think has a good chance to emerge that should have last year was Royce Freeman, the second-year man in Denver. I know Philip Lindsay went good guns. Another example of a guy who won you a fantasy title, who probably didn't get drafted. But Royce Freeman seems like a guy who might be on the rise to me.
Draft's over. We're into the season now. What should owners look for week after week on that waiver wire? How crucial are those first couple of weeks?
The first couple of weeks, be careful. Don't dive all in. If you have a free agent bidding budget, don't spend it all at once. A thing we've learned, especially in recent years, is the less teams get work in August, the more September looks like what August used to, right? It's unpredictable. It's very volatile. It's hard to get a read on where things are going. Offenses don't seem to get into sync until well into October. That said, if you see a guy who's spiking, a guy who's suddenly getting a workload, and you can find some context to it, some reasoning and logic behind it, don't be afraid to jump on and try to get them cheap before everyone else catches on. That's the key. Not getting caught in the bidding wars when guys actually explode on the seed. Try and play your waiver wire a week ahead.
All right, Bob, best place for people to get some more help from you as the season goes on.
Head for footballdiehards.com. We have a full range of services, products, news, information available for you, and it'll help you out greatly.
Bob will join us each week, and he's ready to help your fantasy football team. Send your questions to me on Twitter, @JackDoles. Get them to me by noon on Tuesday, and we'll help as many as time allows. That'll wrap up week 1 of Big Game Bound. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right here every Thursday during the NFL season with a new episode streaming at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. For correspondents Yanni Karakas, Scott Leber, Burt Griffin, and Mickey Spagnola, our producer Spencer Wheelock, I'm Jack Doles. Enjoy week 1 of the National Football League.